Yeah, right.
I just didn't know if they needed to be like planning commission or if I could do it.
Yeah, I mean, what I've heard about that. It's just set aside.
I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to think. To be involved.
And yeah, did that.
Right?
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, sir.
Merry Christmas. Okay, we'll get underway. Roll call. Voice roll call. Okay, go ahead and call.
Mr. Johnson. Mr. Clinton. Here. Mr. Willie Martin.
Here, sir.
Mr. Fikowski. He already let us know he would not make it today. Chair North.
Here.
Mr. Radford. Here. Mr. Paulson.
Here.
Ms. McReynolds, I should not be able to make it. Vice Chair Turk.
Here.
Mr. Holiday. Mr. Lyles.
Here.
Mr. Nova. Here. Mr. Price. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Huber.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Jeremy. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda for approval of consent agenda items and the minutes. 26th meeting on pages 3 through 6. Only action requested is a voice vote to approve consent agenda item. Do I have a motion to approve the consent? I have a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3 stands approved. Moving on to item 4, remarks by the chair. Today, we are live streaming our meeting on the Roanoke Valley-Alleghany Regional Commission's Facebook page, part of our ongoing effort to improve transportation planning organization work. We want to remind anyone watching that they are always welcome to address the TPO by one of our public hearings or in person during the public comment period of each meeting. The Commonwealth Transportation Board meeting on December 4th resulted in a number of unexpected outcomes in the continuing discussion of smart scale application rules. Key results of the meeting were there will be no change in the application cap for local or regional applications, which is good. So VDOT may explore their existing administrative power to reject incomplete applications in an effort to reduce the workload associated with smart scale. The land use scoring factor was eliminated completely. CTV members were warned that this action might be contrary to the legislative intent, and we can expect more discussion here, possibly from the Attorney General. In the meantime, the land use factor points were redistributed across the other factors. The high priority projects definition was broadened from the previous more restrictive language for qualifying projects. The changes to the economic development .1 scores align with the VEDP priorities and tools were adopted as has previously been shared with this body. A formal resolution summarizing these changes is expected to be considered by the CTV at a future meeting. And as an aside, Mr. Ken King has some handouts that he would pass around to you folks, which is the same information the Secretary of Transportation has. It kind of gives you a high-level summary of the changes that we just mentioned, but also on the back, it gives you a more detailed view of the HPP priority changes, the high priority project changes, and it also tells you eliminating step 2, which did sustain. They are going to eliminate step 2. So that might be a helpful tool to keep in your back pocket in case you have a question.
Feel that, oh, I'm supposed to go this way.
No.
We go over this way.
Yeah, all around.
Let's get one over here.
No.
I know you received one. Okay. Thank you. Okay. We'll offer a summary of I-81 committee report. If you're a representative of the I-81 committee, meets once a year, but gets information throughout the year. We have some information concerning JLARC topic selection committee. Senator Jerry McPike suggested a study on tolling. Senator McPike is from Northern Virginia and wanted to take a broad view of tolling in general up there in Northern Virginia. And so Terry Alston, chairman of the I-81 advisory committee, suggests we incorporate Interstate 81 primarily because we've identified no future revenue source upon the conclusion of the current plan in 2033. The Secretary of Transportation agreed at the most recent committee meeting with no follow-up plan for revenue. Right after the study resolution was passed by JLARC on November 13th. So there'll be a resolution that will probably be part of the General Assembly on tolling and traffic congestion reduction in Northern Virginia and on 81. More to come on that and we'll move through General Assembly. Also, as a result of the Commonwealth Transportation Board meeting in Richmond and a letter written to Governor Youngkin on October 31st by Terry Alston, who's chair of the Transportation Committee through the end of this year. Someone else takes over, I think Delegate Delaney in January. There's a couple projects in the Salem district and in the Stanton district. One project in the Salem district that the governor has been requested is to provide a $70 million shortfall for a $360 million estimated project in the Salem district, northbound from mile marker 116 to 128. Now that's what, about 12 miles? So do the math, take 360 million and divide by 12 and you'll see how much it costs per mile. But the gap, which is the Salem district also, and last year, you remember, we tried to get it through smart scale exits, I think it is 120, let's see.
8 through 137.
137 to 128.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, southbound. We go with the northbound, that's still in the design phase, but hasn't been finalized yet, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so we're trying to get that packaged with the northbound, which makes good sense to save about $75 million. So that's a $308 million estimated cost project. And so the CTV blessed that, which means I guess they're going to try to find the money. And you comment further on that?
Yes, sir. So the action of the CTV directed the staff to work in the update of the 6-year plan. When we do that in the at the end of the fiscal year, and that June, we adopted in the June month, would be looking to try to fully fund both directions of I-81 between 128 and 137, so both northbound and southbound, as a top priority over I-81 coming down Christiansburg Mountain in the northbound direction between 116 and 128. So essentially, what had happened before, we were never moving in that direction previous to this, because that section southbound was not in the first tier of improvements of the I-81 improvement program. There's a $1.4 billion that did not make the cut. We just didn't have enough to get it in that first tier. But what has now become apparent, given the way the projects are advancing, that the CPB supported the I-81 committee's request to find some way to do both directions at the same time. And the monies that were on the Christiansburg job will probably slide to that section that was southbound that was previously missing. Now that'll cause the Christiansburg job, the Christiansburg Mountain job, to be pushed off a few years. But that kind of makes sense too, unless you're going to have the entire section of 81 from Christiansburg all the way to Troutville under construction at the same time. There's only been so much construction you want to try to have active at one time. So anyway, I would expect in the coming update of the 6-year plan that we'll see how the allocation of funds or available funds, but I would expect that project will get fully funded in the next update of the 6-year improvement program, as long as allocation of funds and everything comes as expected. So we can watch that and wait for that confirmation. Once that comes, we'll then proceed on with the design work that we have to actually make that one complete improvement, working on both directions at the same time, which makes, and there's about a $75 million cost savings by doing that as doing both directions at the same time, rather than, doing one side and then coming back and trying to just separate mobilization, separate contractor, widen the other side. So I would expect that that's good. And then we'll eventually get to that Christiansburg Mountain job as well.
Yeah, and that job, that the southbound portion was slated to be the first project after 2033,
Correct.
which is like in phase 2, if you will. So that's a good thing for our area, although we'll have to have some patience while it's under construction on both sides.
Absolutely. And as the secretary, I think, noted in the last meeting when we're talking about 81, is that similar to the challenges we've had in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, when we've had projects of this magnitude, things typically get worse before they get better in terms of the challenge of traffic congestion and crashes and the like. And we certainly are very attentive to those. We had a great coordination meeting not too long ago with the Roanoke County leadership and the city of Salem, which have been great partners with VDOT, and we've had a lot of their public safety staff there around the table talking about all the measures that we've collectively been doing to try to address those challenges and reduce the number of incidents and the impact those incidents have on that community. So just appreciate the partnership that and the leadership Roanoke County and the city of Salem continue to provide and support VDOT's projects. We thank you.
Thank you, Ken. That was a good meeting. In fact, I think the work that's been done on the bridge and on that portion that had like a bump, it's smoothed out part of the fun, but it's also reduced, I think, accidents since then. Knock on wood. So be careful driving next week before Christmas too.
Yes, sir.
All right, so finally, I want to note that on page 7 of today's agenda packet includes the RVTPO meeting scheduled for next year. If you have any ideas or requests for agenda items for upcoming meetings, please reach out to me or to Mayor Turk, our Vice Chair, or the RVTPO Secretary Jeremy Bowles, or Corey Williams, who's handling transportation transmission. We've got some topics in the bill, and we'll probably have more topics than we have time, but it's always good to have that to be the case than to not have any. So with that said, we'll move on. I think we got everything covered there. We'll move on to item 5, which is review of existing and candidate project service transportation block grant and carbon reduction programs on page 10 through 13 of your agenda package. And so the chair recognizes Allison Stinnett, who will give us these updates.
Thank you.
Microphone on there.
Yes, it is on. So today we will be talking about the existing and candidate projects for this round of STBG and CRP funding. So just to have a review, we will be going over the current funding availability, the existing project status updates and additional funding requests, and the candidate projects, the new candidate projects that were submitted this round, and the TCC member scores and funding scenario score summary. So this is a part of the annual update to the RVTPO's STBG and CRP programs and projects, and staff initiated this process this fall to develop the next financial plans for fiscal year FY 25 to 30. And the Transportation and Technical Committee has reviewed various components throughout this process and discussed this topic at the last 2 meetings. So, okay. So this is a table that highlights the available funding per fiscal year. And between the 2 funding programs, there's around $18 million. So about 15 million in STBG funding and 3 million in carbon reduction program. So the existing projects that requested additional funding, this is the table that identifies that. But the TTC members and project sponsors provided updates for existing projects and if they were requesting additional funding. And in the staff report, there's a comprehensive list of the active projects and their updates. So for the 5 projects that had identified that they would like to be considered for additional funding follows. So Roanoke County's Route 220 Super Street and Access Management Project. They are requesting 5 million in STBG funding for leverage for round 6 of Smart Scale. And then, two from the city of Roanoke. So the first one is Roanoke River Greenway Underhill. They're requesting roughly 11 million in STBG funding. And their next project, the Greenway connection at Riverland Road, they're requesting CRP funding for around 1 million. And two Roanoke County projects. The first one is Roanoke River Greenway for Explorer Park. They're requesting either STBG or CRP funding for 500,000. And the last one is the Orange Market parking lot and park and ride improvements. And they are requesting either STBG or CRP funding for 1.5. So this year's funding cycle for SBG and now CRP program consider new candidate projects to receive funding. It happens alternating years. So 5 projects requested funding, and 3 of which you'll see would utilize the conditionally committed funds for smart scale leverage. And the projects requesting funding for leverage is a range between 2 million to 5 million. And the 3 projects are the Route 419 electric road safety and streetscape improvements from Granite Road extension to Kiki Road, the Peters Creek Road at Williamson Road intersection improvements, and the Route 11 460 Main Street at Dow Hollow Road intersection safety improvements. And since these were the 5 new candidate projects that were the other 2 that are new projects is the Roanoke River Greenway Afferson Cook Connector, and they're requesting 1.6 million, and the town of Benton is requesting 356,000 for their PE phase. The total project would be 1.2, but it's only 356,000 that they're requesting for the PE phase. So. So a part of this process, TTC members are asked to review the new project application for the project based on the outline criteria and the STBG and CRP application process. And TTC members were to rank candidate projects based on the 2 funding programs separately and the chance that certain projects would fit in one funding program more than another. So even though they were all eligible based on their applications. So there were 5 candidate projects, and so just shows the table based on the average overall scores. So I ranked them here. So in the list, there was only 5 projects that applied for STBG funding and only 4 projects that applied for CRP funding. So that's where the discrepancy is between whether or not in a row. Okay, so the first project, the highest scoring project, was the Route 419 electric road safety and streetscape improvement for both STBG and CRP rankings. And then the Roanoke River Greenway at Afferson to Cook Connector ranked number 2 for both funding programs. And the Peters Creek Road at Williamson Road intersection improvements ranked number 3. Vineyard Road, number 4 for STBG because it only requested STB funding. And then the Route 11 460 West Main Street at Dow Hollow ranked 5 in STBG and 4 in CRP rating. Okay. So the TTC members were tasked with reviewing both the existing projects that were requesting additional funding and the new candidate project. And creating funding scenarios with the existing funding that we have available. So this is a new exercise, and we had 8 TTC members that participated in developing funding scenarios. And this table is just a summary based on the total instances from the highest to the lowest where TTC members chose to partially or fully fund a project in their scenario. So just in order based on how many times that the funding, the project was chosen in the funding scenario. So by far, all 8 people that submitted funding scenarios chose to fund or partially fund the Summerlin Road Greenway Protection Project, and then so forth. But they're very creative, the funding scenarios, and we discussed that at the TCS meeting last week. So this is where the rankings were based on the funding scenario. And this is supposed to help aid our discussion at the next meeting to, you know, start thinking about what sort of recommendations go forward to do that. So this is table for next steps, and the TDC will meet again in January to review and further discuss project funding scenarios. And the RVTPO board in January will have a second reading of this topic, and any additional information that will occur in the January TDC meeting will be incorporated in that presentation next month. So and then at the January meeting, it's in hopes that the action will be to release the public comment period in February on this topic, and then have a public hearing in March. So just looking ahead, hopefully that gives some context to what is coming. So at this time, we're not requesting any action. We just wanted to give this as a first reading to see all the information, and hopefully the staff report has even more information and detailed information. So.
All right, thank you, Allison. Question, Allison, just from a high level, these projects have not received any consideration for SmartScape funding, is that correct?
So. I believe one of them has applied for SmartScape before, the Route 419. The Roanoke County Route
Right,
419.
that one sounded familiar.
Yeah.
Most of the rest of them, this is the first time they're going down funding from the pot federal money.
Yes, the new projects, yes.
And the pot also includes another category, which is the carbon reduction pot.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to ask that. By the way, in the TTC meetings, dates in this package. Those that might
it's just,
attend.
the TTC is always the 2 weeks before, but we can share, I mean, they're online, but we can certainly share a calendar ahead of time.
Share that because some of us might want to come.
Yeah.
I found the other day when I did it. Informative and interesting. I couldn't hear too much sitting over here, so I've asked Jeremy to look at some microphones, portable ones you can set in front of each person, turn them on and off, collect them up. So that we can hear, because, you know, in the winter, the heating unit's running, you can't hear so good, depending on where you're sitting around here. Anyway, very good report, Allison. Anyone got any questions for Allison before we move on? Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to item 6, which is recommendation, amendment number 2 to the 2045 Roanoke Valley Transportation Plan, pages 14 through 16. Hi, Hill. Welcome to the podium. How are you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Much better than a week ago. Been a little under the weather, but I'm glad to be standing in front of you all. All right, this is, I'll be standing up here for 2 amendments of one to the Roanoke Valley Transportation Plan, which you see here. And the following will be a somewhat similar amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program. But first, let's talk about the RVTP and get this thing to stay where it should be. So a little bit of background here for those that have been here for a while. It's kind of a bit of a repeat, but for those new members, we wanted to give just a bit of background on why we're doing this. So we look at federal regulations, 23 CFR 450-324, basically requires all MPOs to develop what's called a Metropolitan Transportation Plan. In this case, we're familiar with the term in Virginia Long Range Transportation Plan. or in this case, the RVTP, the Roanoke Valley Transportation Plan, which was adopted earlier this year. 45104, this thing's got a mind of its own, apparently. 45104 talks about the various different revisions that an MTP can include in terms of a major change, in this case, an amendment. So the first thing you see in red is addition or deletion of a project, and that's essentially what we're doing here. Today, the other, there are other reasons, obviously, change in scope, cost, design dates, those sort of things, but for today's amendment, we're looking at the top one. And then in our own regulations, section 2.1, the amendment section of the RVTP amendment adjustment process. Anytime a project is added or deleted to one of the two lists, the priority project to pursue list, which is essentially the list that is of projects that are unfunded, that are priorities of a locality or agency, or the funded projects, which that's pretty self-explanatory. Anytime there's an addition or deletion to both, it will require an amendment. So what's in this amendment? And I'll encourage you, if you all haven't looked at the list, it begins on page 14 in the staff report, and it's a rather exhaustive list of a variety of different additions, but just to give you an idea of what's in the amendment, we're adding SDBG and carbon reduction program candidate projects to the priority projects to pursue list. Back a few months ago, you all endorsed a couple of applications for transportation alternatives funding. Those candidate projects are being added to the project to pursue list. We received a request from the Virginia Public Rail Authority to have a project added, which essentially is for operations for two trains, essentially new Amtrak operating service in the Roanoke Valley. That's being added. Any and all new projects that are on regional corridors of statewide significance or that are federally eligible are being added to the FY 23 to 29 6-year improvement program. All of round 5 smart scale projects that are funded, those are moving from the priority projects to the funded projects list. All the transit projects in the that are funded under the 24 to 27 TIP that are in the priority project to pursue list are moved to the funded list. And then we anticipated that there was going to be a paratransit vehicles project that radar would receive funds from FTA 5310. That did not occur, so that project was removed from the list of projects to pursue and funded projects. And so that concludes the overview, and of course the recommendation in the staff report after the TTC reviewed the list is to move forward to approve the amendment as presented.
Okay, any questions before we open the public hearing? All right, thank you, Brian. At this time, we will open the public hearing, and there'll be a 3-minute limit per speaker. Do we have anyone signed up to speak? Okay, does anybody wishing to speak that's online now? Okay, with that said, we would close the public hearing and move on to consideration of the resolution amending the Roanoke Valley Transportation Plan as found on page 17. You need to speak to that, right?
Yes, I just want to, Mr. Chair, I just want to make one quick addition. In terms of public comment and outreach for these particular amendments, obviously these projects are funded or have been funded, and so the level of really the level of input that we would received in terms of being meaningful really is a bit diminished, because in the past, we've received comments like, well, you know, is it really worth me commenting? These projects are already funded. So we did put a blog post on our website and, to get any general comments on just the nature of the type of improvements, if those are the type that folks want to see in the future, if more or less, that sort of thing. And unfortunately, we did not receive any comments on this amendment. So I just wanted to point that out. And then in terms of the resolution, I really have no additional comments other than just to say that the resolution captures or intends to capture all of the proposed changes that we recommended.
All right, thank you. That said, we will entertain a motion to amend the Roanoke Valley Transportation Plan. Do I have a motion?
Motion, Mr.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Moulton. All those in favor say aye. All those nays, there being none, motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
You might as well stay up there because the next two on the number seven on the agenda.
That's right. In trying to save my PowerPoint, we've got another amendment to the federal fiscal year 24 to 27 transportation improvement program. And as we've discussed in the past, there are distinct similarities between both of these primary documents, the RVTP and the TIP. So not all of the proposed amendments apply here. Well, all right. Okay. Again, a little bit of background. 23 CFR 45324 requires all MPOs to create a transportation improvement program. And again, that is similar to to your locality's capital improvement program. In this case, it's a document that captures all funds that are all projects that will have federal funds in some amount that are intended to be obligated or placed on a project within a 4-year period. And it also serves VDOT as a tool with which to obtain obligation authority from federal highways in terms of releasing those funds as a project matures through the various different phases. So again, we're looking at the variety of reasons for a major change that are allowed in code federal regulations, addition and deletion of a project. That's what we're going to talk about again today for this. So two things compose this amendment. As we just discussed, adding a new rail project from the Virginia Public Rail Authority to the now that says the funded projects list. That is for the RVTP, but the TIP in itself is a list of funded projects, so which have received federal funding. So that will be added to the TIP. Number two is again the removal of the radar paratransit vehicle project, and again, copy and paste could be a wonderful thing, but in this case, it's a little erroneous. In this case, the paratransit vehicle project is being removed from the TIP as something that received funding from FDA. And so those two are the items for this amendment. And again, the PPC reviewed at the November meeting and recommended as a staff the amendment as presented.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any questions? Brian? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. 3-minute limit per speaker. Do you have anyone to speak? Is anyone online that wishes to speak? Okay, with that said, we'll close the public hearing. And, move on to consideration of the resolution on page 20, amending the 24 through 27 transportation improvement program to include what Brian just presented. Do I have a motion?
Also motion.
Mr. Chairman. Martin makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lyle Benton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the ayes have it, the motion carries. Number 8, other business. Well, other business, let's see, anyone got any other business? I got some, y'all go first. Nobody has any other business?
We'll let you go first, then we'll decide.
Okay, well, I believe my other business to the next item, comment period by RVTPO policy board members and or the public. Anyone got any comments? You have a comment.
This is, I want to apologize for those of you who got extra exercise walking up, the 3 flights of stairs to the building today. If you want to update, our 1961 era elevator has apparently finally bit the dust. So we are going through the process of getting that fully renovated. It will take a little bit. It served us very well at that time. It's only trapped one gentleman from Franklin County for about 20 minutes a number of years ago. So I think that's a pretty good success rate. So we'll keep folks updated. If you need additional assistance, we can remote folks in. If you have citizens or no folks who want to participate in our meetings and are not able to because of the lack of elevator, please let me or Virginia know. We can provide a Zoom link or other access options so that you and board members and other folks can still participate. We hope by sometime, maybe in January, early February, based on procurement and just general repair time. It's not just fixing it, it's fully modernizing the elevator shaft, everything about it. If you ever, I see Mr. Paulson nodding his head, if you've ever in an old building, you can imagine probably what's involved with getting something up to code in 2023. So we'll keep folks updated, but please let me know if there's any other way we can help you get in and out of the building in the interim. So
How much did we spend on repair?
the last repair where we basically upgraded what was almost a clockwork system in our mechanical room was about 20,000, I believe. And we're looking at probably somewhere in the city of 120,000, 140,000 for a full repair. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you're raising the local assessments on the localities that will be covered.
fortunately, we have a little bit of something in the bank. So we did discuss that option with the executive committee, and they did not opt for that. So not this time.
They did not for the increase.
They did not offer a special elevator assessment. I don't know what to do.
That's because they can more understand. I know one thing, it'd be nice to get it fixed. You know, we looked into moving to another facility, and what we were shown, we just said, no, thank you, and came back to this. We're better off spending funds here than we would to go buy a new building or rent a new building. Anyway, it was, so anyway, yes, Kathy.
Yeah, just wanted to make it, for the policy board here aware that I'm actually gonna have our staff, Anthony Ford, who leads our program investment work. The department has continued to increase its efforts to try to be attentive to sound financial management. Many of the localities that, you know, many of you around here, your staffs have been working with us as we went through a sustained performance plan to really look at how well each of the localities are performing in the execution of their projects. And part of that is looking at their fund balance. You know, and around the state, we have a number of localities that have received, you know, funds that some have done great, continue to execute projects, and then there's some where for every project's got a story, every program's got challenges, you know, but has a huge fund balance. And so that's something that you'll see that the, you know, CTB and the commissioner, we've certainly tried to put together some measures and really look at that issue So, and what I want to highlight, it's a little different than the Phillips Chuquette on time, on budget for projects that really looked at simply the performance of the individual projects, right? This is backing up and taking a little bit more of a program view and the financial management around that program. And how much money, like when we looked at the sheet that was shared by Allison that showed the amount of available funding, that's the amount of the funding that hasn't been allocated to a project. It's not necessarily the amount of money available in each of those fiscal years that's setting obligated to a project, but the project, for whatever reason, either it's had challenges, hasn't been able to move. In the case of where we've committed leverage dollars to say a smart scale application, we leveraged, I think it was 5.2 million on the Diversion Diamond that's going to advertisement this spring. It'll be under construction over the next 2 seasons. But the money that we probably have somewhere in our financial world earmarked to that, maybe like $2020. Well, the reality of it is we probably could use $27 because we won't have to pay those bills until the contractor's done that work. And so we're starting to look a little bit more, asking everyone to look at their programs a little bit more thoroughly to really take into account and make financial adjustments like that. You know, just like the Diversion Diamond, if that money was 2019 money, we probably ought to put that on another active project that's spending money now and have, you know, that money be future dollars, you know, and balance that out within that overall program. So certainly Anthony has been talking with Jeremy with the staff here about the coordination of those activities. And, you know, certainly they'll be doing more of that work and also bringing the TTC into that discussion. It'll just mean that we want to do the right things, just like we're expecting each of the cities to do the right things in the administration of their projects and the money that's allocated to cities. We want to try to go ahead and we're not getting a lot of pressure on that right now at the TPO and MPO levels. But I think that pressure, since everything else is being looked at, I'm sure that's going to be looked at. So I've just asked Anthony for us to roll up our sleeves and look at that financial money management. And really what it means is it's an effort to try to, if we have dollars in the bank that can be put to work on projects that this priorities are, we want to make sure that those are put to work. And, you know, that way, if the 5.2 million that we had earmarked for the Diversion Diamond, if we need to plan for that to be available, and I think we would have to have that by 2027, you know, but we don't have to tie up current financial year dollars. So there may be ways that we can advance projects more effectively and spend down our balances. And that's always a good thing when, you know, when you look at the fund management of programs. So I'm just going to be asking Anthony to continue to work with Jeremy, and they'll get a cadence of how that looks and keep the TTC informed, and then certainly this board as well. So just put that on your radar screen as a work for the year ahead, I think is the goal.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Anybody have any more comments on what he passed around on what's going place on these smart scale changes? Okay, good deal. Anyone else have any comments? Yes, Barbara.
Mr. Chair, the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors and their legislative agenda prioritize the Valley Greenway, Valley Trail, and would like for the Roanoke RVARC to think about how we want to go forward with the Valley Greenway.
Okay, thank you.
There's also the Stag Bowl in Salem tomorrow night. It will be on ESPN, but it starts at 7 o'clock if anybody's interested in watching some good football.
Okay, thank you. All right, plan. Anyone else for what's going place? How's the master plan coming?
We're having a lot of fun discussing it with the FAA, but we hope that we'll have their final comments here before too much longer.
When you go up there and meet with them, or you do it by Zoom?
Most of us by Zoom, by phone call. Yeah. Once we kind of get all the questions resolved, then we can submit the actual airport layout plan that would constitute the changes.
Okay. That way they won't even.
Then we can figure out how to pay for it.
But they're right. Well, it's in Roanoke County's agenda to support federal state money and local match.
Salem City too.
Salem City too. So there you go. Yeah, it's a regional effort. Drives economic development. All right, so there being nobody else, I just want to take this time to recognize and thanks, a big thank you to Billy Martin for his dutiful service to the Transportation Planning Organization and Regional Commission, and I want to wish you the very best in the future. And listen, you know, don't be a stranger. You're welcome to come in here anytime and visit with us and attend these meetings. I can't promise you that you're gonna get a ham sandwich every time you come. Like you do with the executive committee meetings. Billy's been a part of the regional commission, the TPO, and the executive committee for as long as I've been around, 6 years here, and, you know.
So how many years, Billy?
16 years, so I got 10 more years to go. My gosh, no.
Yeah. That's a-
Wow, I'm not sure I'll make it, Mr. Radford might think.
Well, I have to say, it's been a good journey. And, you know, I can't recall ever having an argument with anybody in here on the regional commission or the TPO. It's been good, you know, made a lot of friends, and as you make friends, you know, you talk a lot. As you talk, you draw out some of the knowledge and the skills that they've learned, which makes you a lot better. You know, this organization deals with millions of dollars to the localities and to the state. And it's all because of the decisions that each one of you make. And, you know, if you weren't, capable of doing that or smart enough to do that, you wouldn't be on this committee. So I just want to thank everybody here for your friendship, and it's kind of bittersweet, and you know, it's like moving away from the family after 16 years. But I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do next week or next month, because I'm losing 15 committees that I've been on, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. But it's gonna be fun finding out, and I think I'll just relax for a while. But I want to thank all of you for your friendship, the work you do, and really made my life better by knowing each one of them. So I appreciate that, and I wish you all the best. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Family, we all are family. We all are a village, but Peter's left the other day and drove after his dinner and took off to Richmond to learn how to be a commissioner revenue. He referred to us as family too. So when you lose someone that's been there as long as you and even longer, you know, it's like losing a family member who's moving overseas or something. You won't see him quite as often. And you know, one of the things I can say about this board and the regional commission and our board and other boards around the area here, and we're pretty civil about things. We don't have any knockdown, drag out battles like they do in Washington. And I'll tell you something, you know, economic development, site developers, folks in that industry, they look around and listen. And if they find noise somewhere that's controversial, you'll never know whether they ever looked at you and walked away and went someplace else with their business opportunity. So, you know, what we do here is more than just transportation. It's economic development too. And so we always need to remember that and be on our best, be on our very best. We may not always agree, but we don't always, most of the time, we don't ever disagree that much as well. So I just wish folks in Washington could be that way. Because it's a circus train up there. Marvin and Bailey don't have a circus train. It's in Washington. All right, well, thank you very much. There being no further comments.
Happy holidays.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and
Motion to adjourn.
and wait a minute, I'm not finished. I'm on earth and good will to men. Motion to adjourn, and I have second motion. Adjourn.